Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today is day 9 of spoiler season for patch 3.19 and the Lake of Kalandra expansion. This has 2 reworked uniques and some major changes on the future of the Path of Exile wiki. So let's start with Victario's Flight, which has been one of the more controversial changes in that it does actually undermine one of the ways that this item is used at the moment. So Victario's Flight, the current version, is 15 dex, 15 int, a bunch of evasion rating, 15% unconditional movement speed, 10% additional unconditional movement speed that is for you and also all of your nearby allies, and 5 to 10% of damage taken recouped as mana. So this is changing to keep the intelligence, the dexterity, and the evasion rating. The movement speed seems to be being increased, the 15% unconditional personal movement speed. We don't know what the new rolls will be, 17% on this example it's given. But then we have new stats. 16% increased movement speed when on low life. And your Quicksilver Flasks also apply to nearby allies. The old use cases for these boots were equipping them at level 12 because you don't own Wanderlust, you don't own 7 League Step, and they're the next best set of boots, or they were equipping them to an Animate Guardian at endgame. Animated Guardian would then grant you an additional 10% movement speed until the Animated Guardian died and took the Victario's Flight with it, but because Victario's Flight was so cheap, you didn't really care about losing them. Well, now it's getting a totally new identity, where it's going to grant you more movement speed if you are on low life, which might be a little bit of a buff to Petrified Blood leveling, which is something I haven't really seen people mess around with, but it's an option now. But then the main thing is this Quicksilver Flask also applying to nearby allies. This is going to be really fun in party play, but also when you bring your own party through the use of a minion build. We'll have to see all the changes that come to minion itemization before I can say much about how that's going to work out. It's an interesting change, but I can see that this is not going to be as good as the old version in some use cases, whereas in other use cases, it's going to far outclass the old version. The next piece of news was Grinding Gear Games getting involved in the community wiki. So Path of Exile has had a couple of wikis over the years. There was an original one that was set up when the game was very new. That ended up getting sold to a company that a lot of players have felt has not treated it very well. And as a result, people started losing a bit of confidence in the Path of Exile wiki around about 3.13, 3.14. During this period, a group of the most dedicated moderators on the original Path of Exile wiki decided that they weren't going to try to fight all the changes that were happening. They were simply going to set up an alternate wiki. That wiki has now far eclipsed the original one, at least in my opinion, and I highly recommend using it. It is pewewiki.net. Grinding Gear Games are now officially recognizing it, but additionally, they are paying all of the hosting fees for it. Additionally, Grinding Gear Games are now into it on their website. So this is definitely an improvement. It's not 3.19 specific, it's just one of those changes that's happening at the same time as 3.19. Finally, we have the changes to Vaal Caress. Now, this is a set of gloves that were introduced first in the Onslaught League, which is a long time ago. They used to be in a set of items that were called League-specific uniques, until that was mostly phased out in patch 3.14. Now they are a tier 3 rarity drop anywhere unique. So that makes them about 5 times as rare as Tabula Rasa and about 4 times as common as Chevron's wrappings, give or take a little bit. What do these items do? They used to be +2 to the level of socketed Vaal gems, a bunch of extra armor and evasion, some life, some cold resistance, and you gain Onslaught for 5 seconds on using a Vaal skill. Well, the Onslaught component is getting quadrupled. That's going to be 20 seconds of Onslaught. With that in mind, I think that you can use these as your only source of Onslaught on a lot of builds. You won't have it until you've killed a few enemies at the start of the map, but once it gets rolling, you'll probably be able to use a Vaal skill roughly every 20 seconds. But then the big change is the +2 to the level of socketed Vaal gems being transformed to 2 lines of text, +5 to the level of socketed Vaal gems, -5 to the level of socketed non-Vaal gems. Now, one thing you'll know is that since patch 3.3, anytime that you equip a Vaal gem, you also get the non-Vaal version of that gem as well as a skill, and that will also get +5. So if you socket Vaal Arc into these gems, both Arc and Vaal Arc will get +5 level from that. But then you've got -5 to the level of non-Vaal gems. This totally ruins a number of potential support gems you might otherwise have been interested in using. No Empower, no Enlighten, no Enhance. A number of Awaken support gems get hit really hard by this change. Now, this is going to change which support gems that you want to use in some situations. For instance, if you have Vaal Spark, then one of the support gems that's often fairly good with that is Awakened added lightning damage support, but that's very sensitive to gem level. Likewise, a number of other support gems from Decay to Ice Bite are very, very sensitive to gem level. Those are going to be meaningfully worse if they're socketed into Vaal Caress. This goes double, triple, quadruple for Enlighten, Empower, Enhance, and their Awakened versions, which are pretty much completely useless if they're socketed into Val Caress because you'll only get the level 1 version. However, there's a lot of support gems that don't scale very much with gem level. Things like Pierce support. Yeah, the higher level versions are better, but the low level versions do the same thing. They have the same functionality, they just have slightly lower numbers. So for that reason, I think you will see Val Caress used a fair bit in builds as people experiment with it. I particularly like the idea of using this on an Ignite build. Maybe your primary skill is Wave of Conviction. You've set up to Ignite with Wave of Conviction, but then you also have something that has different functionality. This could be Val Flame Blast, it could be Val Fireball, it could be Val Arc that you've got in your Val Caress. When you need an extra burst of something, whether it be damage or damage projection, then you fire off whatever's in your Val Caress. Yeah, the support gems on that will be a little bit worse, but it's a level 26 gem. You're fine with that. Finally, this is tier 3 rarity. That means that you will probably be able to find it as a double corrupt sometimes. This is because Val Temple drops a lot of double corrupted unique items. If a lot of people run Val Temple, you'll find a few of them in a trade league will get a double corrupted Val Caress. Even though people wouldn't necessarily go and deliberately double corrupt this item, there'll be a number of them out there, and they will be something that'll be both a jackpot drop if you get one that's got 2 synergistic corrupts, and also something that will be available to trade for if you've got the currency to do so. So that's all for 3.19 news. I did have one thing I wanted to plug, which is that I have over on my Nexus store the ability to sell Kirax Vault, which is going off sale in a few more days' time when the Sentinel League expires. If you're interested in getting it, link down in the description below, then you will pay the same amount you'd pay if you bought it directly from GGG, but I will get a cut from it, and so will Able Gamers Charity. Otherwise, may your Val Orbs have interesting results, and I will see you around.